Alright guys, welcome back. So now in this video we are actually going to fetch some data from this API Chuck Norris. So let's actually go to this API and try to locate it first of all. So I'm going to go in here into the top and I'm going to search for the Chuck Norris API. So the one that I'm going to be using is going to be this one in here on https api.chucknorris.io. Okay, this is going to be the API I'm going to use. Now, as you guys can see, there is in here a link that it says https api.chucknorris.io/jokes/random. So this is an example of a link that you can use to retrieve some data. Now, look at this. In here, when you go to an API like this, an API link, you should have an example of a response, something like this. An object, a JavaScript object with an icon, and in here you got some URL for it, you got an ID, you got a URL, and you got the value. This is going to be the actual joke. So let me click in here just to see. Look, when I click in this link, I got this response back from this API. So look, you got some categories, created at, icon URL, ID, updated, URL, and value. Look, fatalities in Mortal Kombat, blah, blah, blah. You got a lot of things in here. If I'm going to refresh the page, we should see another random value for this API. So let me refresh. Look, now there is a random different joke in here. So how can we actually grab this in React? Let's go into our app.js. And on the top, just before our return, the best place for you to actually grab some data from an API, it would be using in here the use effect hook. Okay, so the use effect hook, we actually need to, when you use it in here, you actually need to import it in here on the top as well. So I'm going to put use effect. Okay, not all of this, but like this. Okay, so I imported the use effect on the top, and now I have this use effect in here. Let me just delete all of this because I want to just write down everything by myself so I can explain you. So this use effect is going to have a function inside that is going to run. Look, this is the function inside, and then you need to put a comma, and between these square brackets, you can specify when you want this function to run. If you leave these square brackets in here empty like this function is going to run only once when the page is loaded. So this is actually what we want to do. We want to fetch this data from the API once when the page is loaded, and then you can actually do something with it. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do in here is you actually want to fetch the data from the API. Now, there are two ways in here that you could actually do it, or there are three or even more, but two of the most popular ones would be, one would be using the fetch API, and the other one would be using Axios. Okay, so for this project, I'm actually going to use Axios because I think it's very easy to use and very beginner friendly. So we need to install it first. Remember guys that in here on your terminal, you still have your React project, your server is still running. So if you need to stop it, just press Ctrl+C on your keyboard to stop it. Let me just clear the console in here. And now, if I want to install this Axios, let's have a look in here on the top. If I do npm Axios, okay, you should have in here the top link that says Axios npm. You should see that this node package manager Axios is being downloaded almost 10 million downloads a week. So this is a very popular package that everyone uses. So let's install it. The first thing I'm going to do is npm install Axios. Okay, so this is going to be our third-party library that we are going to install in order for you to grab some data from an API. It was very fast, as you can see. So now, one thing that I actually want to show you is that, let me save this. When you open in here on the left side, your project folder, if you go in here where your package.json is, okay, go back in here, look, inside of the dependencies, now you got Axios because you just installed it. Now, let's go in here into this app.js. I want to import on the top Axios from Axios. So like this, you imported this. Now, inside of this use effect, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to create const result. Okay, it could be any name that you want, but we're going to call it result. Is going to be equals to Axios dot get. I'm using in here this get property, this get method, because this is the one that we use when we usually load a page. So this is one of the HTTP methods that when you load the page, you use this kind of method, get. And inside, you need to specify the URL that you want to grab. So I'm going to put in here this one, API chucknorris.io jokes random. Okay, let me just close this and let me just increase this so you guys can see this better. Okay, axios.get. Now, after I do this, after I grab this data from this API using this axios.get, I want to do a console.log of this result. Okay, let's just do it. I'm going in here into my page. Okay. Obviously, this is still not running because remember that we closed down our server from before. So I need to do a npm start to start the server again. Okay, the server is starting again. And now let's right click on the page. Let's go to inspect. And if you look in here into this console, okay, let's just go in here. Let's just go in here. Now, as you can see, there is a promise in here. Okay, so there's actually a small problem in here is that when you are trying to get some data from an API, like this example in here, the server could be very slow. There could be other kind of connectivity problems. When you are trying to grab this, imagine that it could take 3 seconds. Actually, JavaScript is not waiting for this result to finish and goes on to the next line automatically. Okay, so this result in here could take a while, and because of that, we do not see the result in here. So there's actually a way that you can tell JavaScript to say, okay, I want you to wait for this code to resolve itself, to grab the data back from the API, and then you can do this result. For that, before this function, we can use something called the async and await. So before your function, you put in here async, and now before your axios.get, you should put in here await. So like I said, using this async and await, now you will make sure that you can do this code in here first. It will wait to get some result, and then it will actually go in here and log this. So if you go in here, look, you see it in here on app.js line 10, which is this one. You see that you got these results of config, of data, headers. We want this one in here that says data. okay? And inside of this data, there is this value, okay? So if you go in here, now this is the joke that we are looking for. So let's do in here a result dot data dot value, okay? So I'm actually going to increase the size so you guys can see. Now look in here, you got in here on app.js 10 the actual value for this API. Alright guys, so now you are actually grabbing this. So I want to show you on the next video how you can actually get these onto the page to display in here. And let's just get rid of these warnings as well on the next video. Alright guys, that's it now for this video, and I will see you in the next one.